back to Truck Check, everyone. This week we're going to return to a subject we've talked about quite a few times this year, three really, about the new Volvo VNL. This time we're going to take a deeper dive, perhaps into some of the safety aspects of the new truck. Our guest is going to be Maddie Sullivan, who is a product marketing manager for Volvo. She did most of the discussion with customers and others about safety on the new truck. And she also has covered a lot of other areas regarding the platform. We're going to have an opportunity to talk with her in just a moment. Maddie, welcome to Truck Tech.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, listen, it's really, when we talk about safety, Volvo has this reputation on the car side and the truck side around safety already. So it's one of the things that people think about, I think, when they think about Volvo. It's interesting on the truck side that we saw in July that the government, the Federal Motor Vehicle Carrier Safety Administration, put out some numbers that showed that, truck crashes actually are falling again after peaking in 2018. They're starting to come down. These aren't the same numbers that the NHTSA uses, but they're close in the sense that, these are looking just at heavy truck collisions. It's interesting that we are seeing that now, and you are also perhaps going to take us a little farther in that with the new VNL.
Yes, for sure, Volvo and safety are pretty synonymous, and we do have this vision, right, of a zero accident society. We're not quite there yet. The last numbers I saw were about, for the million-mile life of a truck, it's going to be in 1.9 accidents. And those are, they're defined as if someone has to be towed away, and then, of course, if there's an injury or a fatality. So we're not quite to zero yet, but everything we do is towards that vision to keep that number going down. And then also where we can't maybe prevent or avoid an accident, trying to mitigate the damage as much as possible.
Well, I think some of what we've seen in the safety space, especially with advanced safety, ADAS kind of level 2 safety and things like that, we are seeing some gains in terms of avoidance. For example, I think not just with the VNL, but with all products, you're offering forward collision warning now. That's kind of an interesting area. There are some other things that you're doing. You want to talk maybe a little bit about preventative safety in the VNL?
Yeah, so when it comes to trying to avoid accidents, right, we see that the forward collision mitigation that we have on like the legacy VNL is about 82% effective in mitigating accidents. But now with the new VNL, being able to introduce our new or our global Volvo Active Safety platform, being able to bring that into North America, we expect an extra 10% in mitigation, both for forward collision, so up to 92%. And then that also is going to be new to side collision, which we have not previously had on the VNL. So that's going to be an additional 92% in side collision mitigation as well. So, forward collisions are 30% of truck accidents, side collisions are 14%. So we're really trying to work our way to, taking those out of the equation where we can. And so when it comes to forward collision, I think what's really exciting about the new VNL is having the pedestrian detection. That's a huge advance, and especially for maybe your more regional customers or being just in more urban areas, the ability to pick up people in front of you and then also in your blind spot with the side detection. I think that's going to be a big game changer in terms of, safety in those more congested areas. And then also the distance that it can pick things up. We've reliably tested up to 700 feet in front of us. So you have so much more time for the truck to recognize that there's something in front of you and to take the action that's needed. So I think that's going to go a really, really long way into avoiding accidents, both for frontal and for side.
And when you get to the point of having something that would activate a forward collision alert or something like that, you also have automatic emergency braking, I presume, and things like that will actually finish the job, so to speak, if you will. It's one thing to know about it, it's another to be able to truly avoid the collision. I wanted to ask too about on the side mitigation. That's one of those areas that has begun to gain some popularity and involves obviously extra cameras. I don't know, are you using radar as well there, or just a camera?
Yeah, so we'll offer radars on the passenger side and then also on the driver's side. And that covers all the way to the front of your bumper to the back of your trailer, up to a 53-foot trailer. So it's got a huge zone of coverage for both sides.
Right. So then I also think, and I guess this fits here. We talk about camera monitoring systems, video systems. You're going to offer that now as well. I don't know if that's a standard option. A standard feature, but we're hearing really good things about video camera. Basically, round the truck monitoring essentially.
The camera monitoring system is incredible, and no, it will not be standard, but it will be an option, and it is the view that you get in these monitors is so much clearer than what you can get in a mirror, and it covers such a big distance. I mean, it really is, especially as somebody who drives but not very often, it's great to have that extra visibility on your sides, on both sides, especially, and then it also does trailer tracking. So as you're going around turns, it's going to follow that trailer with you. So it just really gives you that extra level of security of knowing exactly where you are and where everything around you is within your space. And then the fact that you can activate these cameras when you're just parked too, to know, what's happening around you while you're maybe at a truck stop, is just a whole other level of safety when you're off the road. But the fact that these are, infrared cameras that at nighttime you can see so well.
One of those advantages, I remember, being in one of the Stone Ridge systems. They demonstrated for me a few years ago. I'm not sure who you're using, but the Stone Ridge system, was one of those things where after a while, after you got used to it, and it was just like looking at your mirrors, actually, like you said, maybe a little simpler because you're not spending quite as much time, arching to get to it and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
These systems, though, are still waiting to become approved for factory installation. Presumably, Volvo figures that's coming. Right now, they're technically an aftermarket, aren't they?
So for the new VNL, these are going to be a factory offering. You'll be able to order your VNL with camera monitoring system, and it's going to come to you that way from the factory. Now, what you will still offer with that, you'll get small aerodynamic door mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's currently, you can't have trucks come out of the factory without door mirrors if you have a camera monitoring system. That's a fleet exception, but you will be able to get the cameras, the monitors, all of that right out of the factory.
One of the things about the VNL that we have talked about is that it's all new from the ground up. And when it comes to safety, that had to make a difference. If you can design in safety systems from the get-go, rather than have to, use an aftermarket supplier as you have been or something like that. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, building a truck from the ground up, from scratch, makes all the difference in the world when it comes to this technology, right? So if you think about, um, you know, having the entire truck designed to talk to specific systems from the beginning, that makes all the difference, right? So our active safety platform that we have globally, able to integrate that was always part of the design of bringing, some of the technology to a North America focused truck. And when it comes to technology that we haven't had in the past on our legacy VNL, that's all from those limitations of not being able to integrate them into the truck's architecture as it is. So being able to start from scratch, know that this is all the technology we want to have. This is all the technology we want to be prepared for, in the next 5, 10, 30 years of what's next. When you build a truck from scratch, those are all the things that you're thinking about and that you can prepare for. So this truck really is the platform of the future, not just for safety, but really for any technology that, as we progress as a society, this is going to be the platform that's ready to handle that.
Yeah, obviously, you've talked about and shown, the autonomous version, which would be based on the VNL that you're working on with Aurora. You have teased anyway an electric version of this truck. We don't know much about that. I won't push you there. Again, those aren't safety things, but it does get to that sort of, and pardon the cliche, kind of the Christmas tree approach where it is the Christmas tree and everything you do kind of hangs on it in an ornament sort of way. I mean, that's anything you're going to do off of this basis. And I guess I need to point out, because maybe you did, I missed it, but this is the first time you've really done a North American purposed, VNL, and that in itself says that you're going to be looking at what this market and this highway needs are, right?
Yeah, I mean, so we've been working on this truck for the last 7 years, really, even since before we had the updated VNL come out around 2017, 2018. So this has always been what is it that North America needs? How do we deliver that to our customers? And obviously using shared technology from what we've learned globally, but really designing it for our North American drivers and our customers. So again, designing it from the ground up, both looking to the future, what is that we need right now. These are all things that you can take into effect when you start from a blank piece of paper, basically.
Sure. We're going to get back to some of the driver features and safety in a moment, but one of the things that, from a protection standpoint, driver protection standpoint, would be the use of high strength steels. Now, you've got both ultra high strength and high strength steel in, I presume, in the cab area. Maybe you can describe what went where and how those decisions were made.
Yeah, so having a more mechanical background, that's one that's been really exciting to me, especially in previous at Volvo. I used to work in cab engineering, so all these new features are really exciting to me. But so in the previous VNL, we did have some ultra high strength steel, but what we have now, I've basically been telling people, is ultra high strength steel. So it is a hot stamp steel that is more than twice as strong as the high strength steel that we had previously, and that's just because the technology wasn't available. Now it's in similar locations, so we've got this ultra high strength steel above both doors to protect in rollover situations, and the ratios a bit more so where in the previous truck we might have had about 5% total of ultra high strength steel, where some of it was at a lower grade. Now we've got about 6%, and more of it is this ultra high strength steel. I mean, it is not only is it twice as strong as our previous highest strength, it's more than 7 times as strong as your exterior panels. So that goes a long way into protecting the driver in any kind of rollover situation, right? So not only are we the only OEM in North America to be using all high strength steel, we're the only OEM in North America that's doing the Swedish impact test on all of our cabs. And it's really impressive to watch these videos of, your front pendulum hitting by the windshield, your rear on the rear wall, and to see, how well the cab stands up after that. If you have to be in an accident, you want to be in a Volvo truck when it happens, because you're most likely going to walk out of there, right? There's so much the survival space that we check for. I mean, it's a really rigorous testing process. It's the strongest really globally. It's not required by anybody except Volvo. It's a Volvo standard, right, that we'll always do. So we always make sure that the cab itself is ready for every what if. The doors will always unlock. You're going to have this survival space. So that's really the core when it comes to safety for Volvo, right?
Well, you're sort of describing what sounds like a safety cage, and that was, I have a car background out of General Motors, and we used to talk about that. You had that not a cage necessarily, but you had an area of protection because of crashworthiness and things like that. That sounds like, at least in a rollover situation, that's what you're shooting for now, is to reduce deformity and things like that might happen in one of those obviously unfortunate situations. I want to know a little bit more about the side. We talked about having the cameras and the radars on the side. What else about that side impact, or side monitoring, is going to make a big difference here? Well, I know some others have been talking about it some, but
yeah. So probably my favorite part of what we've added for side collision is still with that driver protection. So now so most people are familiar, right, with if a Volvo truck is in a forward collision, the engine drops out, a couple other things happen, right? The engine shuts off, the doors unlock, lights come on, things like that. So now we've brought all those same features to a rollover incident. So if the truck begins to roll over, again, your engine's going to shut off, your interior lights are going to come on, your door's going to unlock, and then it's also going to immediately call 911, which is another brand new feature, both to the new VNL, and then it's an industry first for North America to have this Ecall system. So if any airbag deploys, or if the truck detects that it's rolled over, it's going to make an automatic call to 911 with the truck's location, and you're going to get a two-way phone call with the nearest emergency services operator. And so they're going to know exactly where you are, because in trucking, you're very rarely, at a place where you can, if you're still conscious, where you can say exactly where you are. And really just every second matters, right? When the worst happens. So that's going to go a huge way into protecting drivers, even with side collisions and rollovers. And then similarly with, we're going to have for the cameras and for the radars, right? So now we'll have a lane centering feature, lane keeping. So more ways to really keep you in your lane. Now that you've got this extended range for your blind spot, knowing what's around you, you're also going to have this technology to help keep you in your lane, really to help avoid any kind of side collisions there. So it's really a full picture for that side collision avoidance where we can and mitigation where we can't. So.
Well, Ecall is interesting because, again, I'm reminded anyway, in some ways, of OnStar, which came into being in the 1990s, and it was always initially anyway sold as a safety feature. In fact, the original ads had Batman in them, way back when. But the thought now that you've taken this one step further, which would be to allow an outbound call that you can actually make a call.
Yeah, so there's also an optional SOS button that's right over the driver's seat. So say your driver has a medical emergency, or maybe they've driven by another accident. There's a lot of situations where they want to be able to contact emergency services, and you can make this outgoing call and still have that same two-way conversation without necessarily having to have such a severe accident that triggers it automatically.
Yeah, when we were talking a moment ago about rollovers, one of the things that I think drivers have been sort of trained to do is to steer out of trouble. And I remember several years ago being in Virginia and seeing the dynamic Volvo dynamic steering. That has now also been updated. What is new there? It was already pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, so there is quite a bit new for Volvo dynamic steering. The biggest thing just being that because we have this new 24-volt architecture, we were able to basically bring in a completely new Volvo dynamic steering motor. So it is not the same motor that we have on our legacy VNL. It's designed specifically, again, from the ground up, designed for this application. And not only is it going to have the same benefits in crosswinds and kind of easing the physical effort needed by truck drivers, but now we're also going to have oversteer guidance, right? So if you are maybe if you think someone's going to come at you and you are trying to steer out of the way, VDS is going to say that's a lot of input from the driver. It's going to really minimize that over correction, hoping to avoid rollover situations. We're also going to have personal settings for dynamic steering, which is like you said, it's already pretty good, but it is really interesting to see how the different preferences that different drivers have for how maybe loose or how stiff they really want that wheel to feel. So you're going to be able to have the option to either customize it yourself, or we've got some preset options for if whether you're wanting it to be a lot more flexible if you're doing slower maneuvers, or if you're going at high speeds, it's a windy day and you want that extra firm kind of support. So that's going to go a really long way, I think, to bringing dynamic steering to the next level.
Well, in a way, it sounds like the dynamic steering is complementary in a sense to lane centering, and they're not the same thing, of course. But if you're going to, sort of guide the driver into when there might be an oversteer situation, it's a little bit like, kind of bouncing somebody back to the center of the lane a little bit if they're drifting, a little, right?
Yeah. So I mean, so VDS is going to enable those same the lane keeping and the lane centering, that's more of a because the camera can see where the lanes are, the lane lines. And right. So lane keeping is going to make sure that, if you do get too close, it's going to just nudge you back in to your lane, versus lane centering is like a proactive, it's going to keep you in the center of your lane so you're not going side to side. And that's, just a little bit different from like the oversteer guidance. That's just saying, hey, only so much steering input is really needed in different situations. But yeah, dynamic steering is really the foundation for all of these new technologies.
Right. I want to go, and I know electrical is probably not your first area, but you mentioned the 24-volt system, and I might get you out of here on that. And that is that this is something that is actually going to allow you to take advantage of more things that come from the other parts of Volvo, which do use a 24 volt system, you had to sort of work them down to a 12 volt in this market. Now you don't have to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, so it goes a really long way to changing the entire architecture of the truck, right? So not only do you have this ability to have the 24 volt system, but the higher voltage means you get to have less amps, so you get to use smaller wires. You get less wear and tear on your electrical components because you don't have that same kind of surge going through different components. So not only is it enabling us to bring in global technology, but it also goes a long way to increasing the life of all of the electric systems on your truck in general. So it's partially, to be able to collaborate more globally, but I think a lot of it too is it just has a general benefit to the truck all around, no matter if it's a 12 or 24 volt accessory that you're using.
Right. And, that comes to sleeper cabs too. When I've had it demonstrated, some of your colleagues have shown us, how much simpler it is really to run the things that you want during downtime, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It's much simpler than it was previously. I want to give you kind of the final word here on this, and then we'll let you go. But really appreciate some of the deeper dive into some of the safety aspects of the VNL.
Yeah, so I mean, if I had to leave one parting note, it would really be that the Volvo Active Safety Platform is so different from anything that we've had before in North America. The way that it interacts with the driver, because we do hear a lot of feedback from people who maybe aren't a big fan of forward collision and kind of that alert when people are close to you, because obviously driving a truck, people are always kind of taking advantage of how slow you are to start and cutting in front of you. But with Volvo being in control of this platform, it means we get to control the sounds, the timing at which we have specific alerts. So it's a completely different environment, really, right? I was actually just driving yesterday, and depending on your speed, I've got people cutting me off, and the truck's first. If I'm already using adaptive cruise control, it's just going to slow me down. It's not going to yell at me that, hey, someone's too close. It's just going to pop up and say, hey, this truck is, or this other vehicle is this far away from you, it's going this fast. We'll make adjustments. If you are too close, you're just going to get a heads up display, not, again, loud beeping right away. So it's really much more user friendly in terms of the conditions that people are driving in all the time with traffic.
Sure.
So it's not this kind of oppressive yelling at you all the time. It's really more of a driver assistance feature that is not going to
be intrusive.
Yeah, exactly. It's really more, it feels very integrated and natural, very much like the technology on cars, the different feedback you get if you're drifting out of the lane, if someone's in your blind spot. It feels very much just like driving a car, honestly.
Thank you so much for spending time with us on Truck Tech and helping us further learn even more now about the VNL. We'll be doing more of this, folks, over time. Maddie, thank you so much for being here. Folks, we are going to pitch again the upcoming Future Freight Festival in mid-November in Chattanooga. You have an opportunity in Friday's newsletter to get a discount coupon, still there and still available. And also, time is running really short now to get in nominations for Freight Tech Top 25 for this year. Those nominations are due by 6 o'clock Eastern on the 6th of September. So if you have somebody in mind, get that nomination in. You can find the forms and everything you need at freightwaves.com. For me, thanks for being here and have a great week.